Now, one thing I actually didn't talk about, there actually are unused Colossi.
Really?
Originally, there was supposed to be 48 Colossus in mind when
Oh,
planning the game.
I heard that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's supposed to be a butt ton.
yeah. But then it was taken down to just 24. But then I believe it was because of time constraints, partially, and also disk space and everything, that they cut it down to where it was. There were 8 unused Colossi total. And their code names by the developers were Devil, Gryphon, Monkey, Phoenix, Rock, Cyrus, Spider, and Worm.
Now, to elaborate a bit on the different unused colossi that Roxas1359 was talking about, starting with the Devil. The Devil, as the name suggests, resembles a hellish creature like an imp with gargoyle wings stationed on the edge of a cliff with, ruined ruins. This colossi is a bit smaller than usual, and according to the art book, is defeated by scaring with your bow, I'm assuming by shooting in the eye or branding it or something like that, and sneaking around the tall grass nearby in the area, sneaking around to its back, jumping on its back, and then hitting its weak points. To me, this colossi seems pretty neat and a bit different from the normal colossi look. Looking more like a bipedal creature rather than a humanoid colossus. I also enjoy the way that you actually, get on the colossi's back, as opposed to, fair enough, some of them are like tricking the colossi and sneaking around it, but this one actually requires you to sneak around in a tall grass, and and none of the others actually require this kind of special use of the the location like that. Where all the others you hide inside a cave or something, or climb or something. This one you actually use like you're out in the open, and it's like you're a Pokemon, and you gotta ambush them or something. That's a very weird comparison. But, I guess it works. Now on to the next colossi, the Gryphon. This one is based on, more so, the mythological Gryphon, as the name suggests, and is said to be a mobile boss fight, somewhat along the lines of Flanks, or what are named Rook, involving your horse aggro. Though it is rumored that the reason this fight was scrapped, is because the main reason to actually attack him, which is to jump on his back. That was found to be very, frustrating and repetitive, as the player could easily fall off, and I guess it became a chore to get back on, which I could see, since the whole boss fight was very quick in its execution. It is said though that the area where the Gryphon would actually take place can be found in the region I-7 on the map, and which would be the boss's arena. Due to the similarities within the screenshots that the boss was demonstrated in. And, well, that's kind of it, really. The whole, fast-moving colossi does seem pretty neat. Since the smaller ones didn't really involve racing them, but a colossi where you actually have to, run by it and jump on it, seems like, trying to board a train, really. Yeah, in my eyes, that seems pretty cool. But I could see why the whole thing was scrapped if it just became boring and repetitive, unless they mixed it up a bit. Now from this colossi, this one is based more so on a monkey, and it was actually located inside a cave and not in the forest where, monkeys would normally reside. The whole boss mechanic here is it would be swinging along the stalactites, situated above you, and its theory is that it would either attack the player via throwing stalactites, or just dropping down on the player. Now it isn't really said how the player would actually attack it, but I can only guess that it would either drop down, when it drops down to attack you, you would jump on it then, or you would somehow have to climb up to an upper area and jump on it while swinging along the stalactites. In my eyes, this boss fight does seem pretty interesting and unique, since it's the boss is taking advantage of its, indoors environment, swinging along the upper areas and such, and dropping or throwing things at you from above. And it does add a little variety to the arenas. Even though there's like 16 of them, and all the arenas are, kind of unique. But this, in a sense, is kind of a bit more unique. Also, the Colossus thing is unique because it's based, as you can see from the pictures, it's a monkey. You're fighting a giant stone monkey. As opposed to, like a four-legged beast or humanoid colossi or a very scary snake thing that lives in sand. I'm talking to you, Dirge. But I could see the camera being an issue, as all the other colossi, the ones that are above you, all the flying ones, always have an open area, like they're outside. Because you're inside, the area would have to be gigantic. and you would always have to have the area had to be gigantic, but also low enough so you can see the Colossi at all times. Otherwise, it would be pretty annoying. Now, the Phoenix Colossi was a large stone bird covered in flames, akin to the actual phoenix. The only way to actually climb on it was to somehow make the bird fall into a nearby lake, presumably by shooting the wings or making it crash into something. Which, seems kind of weird to me, but I don't know. The reason for the Colossi's exclusion was due to the fact it was apparently overpowered, and required a huge arena. That's, in my eyes, kind of interesting. I would really want to see how this Colossi was actually overpowered. Was its wing attack too strong? Did it fire? Was the fiery shield, I guess you can call it, too annoying to get off, or it did a lot of damage? Did he fire fireballs out of his mouth? So even though I can understand why this one was taken out, I would really want to see this one in action, just to see video proof why it was overpowered. Now the Rock Colossi is a bit less obvious. Now the rock is actually based on the Arabic bird of prey mythology, and how it looks is it's basically a long-necked bird, and for this game it resided in the desert-like area, not the desert-like area, and required the player, like before, to ride around aggro and shoot down the bird, to jump on it, and then to hit it in the siggles, the weak points. Now this battle was actually scrapped due to it being really similar to Avion's and Phalanx's fight, as well as having collision difficulties. Now when I was reading the description, when I long-necked bird, the first thing that came to mind was actually Avion. And the way to actually, the aggro running around shooting it down did remind me a lot of Phalanx. Or Phalanx, so what have you say? Rook. I named him Rook. I'm calling him Rook. So, if that's the first thing came to my mind when I think of how to defeat it, I'm kind of glad they took it out. Because each of the Colossi in the game have their own distinct way to beat them. Well, in a sense, they have their own little gimmick before you actually jump on them. And they have their own little personality, or at least I gave them their own little personalities. So that made them stick out a bit more. The Rock, while it does seem like a pretty nice bird, a nice thing to take from, a nice design to take from, the bird of prey thing, I'm really glad they took it out, because it makes it so each Colossi is gives a lasting impression. And this one, it wouldn't really give me that much of a lasting impression, and it's very similar to Avion, which is the first thing I thought of, like I said before. Now for the next Colossi, the Cyrus, or more appropriately named Boar, was a fairly small Colossi, around the size of Celosia, or what I named, Bulrush. The gimmick for this fight was somewhat along the lines of the, if you ever played The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, the horseback fights there. I guess I can draw those similarities basically because, you're on a horse, it's a boar, something like that. But, like the Gryphon, it's a high-speed fight. How the art book describes the actual way to, or at least doesn't give a direct confirmation of how to do it, but it gives a slight hint of how you do it, how you actually fight him. Basically, it says that the player has to trick the boar into running into stone henges around the area, setting the Colossi and allowing the player to jump on it. Now, this fight I would enjoy this fight, because it takes what the Gryphon thing, the Gryphon's main mechanic is, running alongside it, and I guess making it more bearable. But, I don't know why this was taken out, really. I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, it is plenty of areas where it can actually be in, but since the map, each of the Colossi were kind of in different sections, I'm assuming it didn't really have a section to shove this board into without it being somewhat cluttered. Because, I'm assuming they had to keep it even, 16 Colossi. But yeah, I would actually like to see this one come in. I mean, it doesn't really sound like there was problems with hurting it. You just ram it. Actually, no, wait. I could see it actually being somewhat like Wrecking Skull, where you have to ram into things and just stun itself. So with that in mind, I could see why they took it out. Because it's like that one, but just faster. So I can understand why they took this one out. While it does seem pretty neat, I could see the whole way to actually fight it being very similar to that and, again, Phalanx. Now for the second last Unused Colossi, this one actually is based more so on a spider. This long-legged beast had to be led from water to land in order to actually fight it, presumably because you can't really swim very fast in water, nor can you properly climb. Now, the way to actually damage the spider, the player was actually required to use a special sideways slash that wasn't exactly part of the main combat system at that time. And it was basically the way to and with that slash, you would actually have to ride around an aggro and slash the 6 legs that kept the spider up, causing it to fall down and allowing Wanderer to climb on and hit the different weak points. The reason for this one's exclusion was because the battle required a special motion that was only ever used and only ever needed for this fight. So, also because, hitting the legs was very hard with that special motion, and the spider's leg attacks could, actually insta-kill the player. While the whole concept of the boss fight does seem pretty different and interesting, I actually kind of like how this boss fight would actually be presented. It doesn't remind me of any other Colossi. The way to actually bring it down does seem pretty interesting. But I can understand why... Actually, no, they could actually alter the Colossi. I was going to say that I could understand why they took it out because, the insta-kill leg thing. That's kind of annoying. But they could always switch up the leg attack with, maybe turrets at the top. That could be interesting. Also, the sideways sword slash could be replaced with, bow and arrow. Using a bow and arrow to hit the special, the joints in the spider's legs, causing it to fall down, do the same thing. I actually would really want to see this Colossi in. Out of all the unused Colossi, this one would probably be, the one I want to see. Which is kind of funny, because I don't really like spiders that much. And the one I want in the game is a spider. So yeah. I'm kind of sad this one's actually not in, really. I'm quite depressed at that. Now, the last unused Colossi is labeled the Worm, and fully enough, the last one on my list doesn't really have that much confirmed information on it. I can only assume that this boss fight works somewhat like Dirge, where it burrows on the ground, but emerges up at certain points to maybe attack the player, or shoot a special beam out of its its flower bulb-like weak point, which is the same place where you actually have to attack with your sword or stab with your sword. From what I read, this Colossi was taken out for being too powerful and required a really large area to dodge attacks. It really makes me wonder, same as the Phoenix, how big of an area this thing really required, and what attack did it really do? The only attack I can really see it, maybe doing is an earthquake, or maybe firing a beam out of its bulb, and that's really it. Other than that, I don't think there's really much else that this worm thing can do. So yeah. That was all the possible Colossi that were actually worked on that Team Ico considered to put in the game, but deemed unfit to join the Shadowed Colossi or Colossus roster. Well, I'm sad that some of these Colossi won't really see the light of day, mostly the spider one, as well as the boar, and the monkey seemed pretty interesting. Those are my 3 favorites out of the list. What we got in the game does show that they focused on what was enjoyable and memorable, and as a result, made a pretty great game. A game that I would recommend to basically everyone. Ever. In the world. Right now, go out and get it. It's I don't know. I got mine for what was it? $20. $20 basically gives you Shadow of the Colossi and Ico. That's a pretty damn good deal. I got mine at Best Buy, so if you want the game, go on Amazon. I'm pretty sure they're really cheap. But yeah, enough of me yelling at you to buy the game. Hashtag buy the game. So yeah, thank you very much guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys later on some other game, let's play, playthrough, whatever, sometime in the future. Bye bye.